There are dark days in history. Usually, they dawn without a hint of being anything but ordinary, yet end with everybody knowing the day's events won't be forgotten.
Firefighters, everyone yelling, run, run.
Today, we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country.
Sadness and anger, in fact, can remain even after those who actually lived the dark day are gone. Historians can help by examining what led to the tragedy and why those events hold so much meaning afterwards. A dark day in South Dakota history happened December 29, 1890. It was winter, but the day dawned sunny, warm, and still along Wounded Knee Creek in southwestern South Dakota. The people of Bigfoot, a Mini-Conju chief, came into contact with the U.S. Army's 7th Cavalry the day before. Bigfoot and his people were far from their home to the north, the Cheyenne River Reservation. All that fall and early winter, settlers across western South Dakota feared American Indians were planning to leave their reservations and attack ranches and towns. Newspapers ran stories reporting danger.
It was ignorance and not wanting to understand, and I think one of the missions that they probably came to do was to create a new frontier. The government and the soldiers did not want the Wounded Knee or the Ghost Dance to be another Little Bighorn, because at the Little Bighorn numbers, there were large numbers of Indian people that were gathered. And so they thought with the Ghost Dance uprisings and with the people in Bigfoot Band coming to Pine Ridge, there was going to be another large gathering of Indians. And that was an immediate threat to the government. And they didn't want another Little Bighorn.
Colonel James Forsyth of the 7th Cavalry knew Bigfoot's journey off the reservation would scare some South Dakotans, even though the group certainly was no war party. Bigfoot had about 350 people with him, including many women and children. About 100 were men who could be considered warriors. Many of those men had guns. And Forsyth told Bigfoot his people had to turn over all weapons and then go directly to Pine Ridge, 17 miles away. So the morning of December 29, Bigfoot's people handed over guns, knives, axes, and even crowbars. But Forsyth believed more guns remained hidden under blankets the people wrapped themselves in against the winter chill. Forsyth told Bigfoot everyone would have to line up and show they had no hidden weapons. One Mini-Conju man pulled a rifle from under his blanket and said no one had a right to take it without making fair payment. Tension grew, and a shot rang out. And then another, and more, until all that could be heard was a roar of gunfire. Among the first to die was Bigfoot. 84 Mini-Conju men, 44 women, and 18 children died that day. More were wounded, and some of them died from those wounds later.
The massacre at Wounded Knee was occurring because the government wanted to put our people on the reservations, and by the year I believe it was 1900, or about that time, they were supposed to be all on reservations, but they weren't. Some of them wanted their freedom, and some of them loved their land. So you had the people who had already settled on the reservations, and you had those who wanted to be free, the hostiles and the friendlies. And of course, the Mini-Conju were the hostiles, and they wanted to be free, loved their land, and never signed a treaty. And in that way, the government wanted to make sure they were on reservations, so they chased them, and finally caught up to them on Porcupine, near Porcupine Hill, and then finally the killing at Wounded Knee.
31 of the 470 cavalry soldiers were killed. News spread fast. First, Wounded Knee was reported as a great Army victory. Some people pointed out it was the 7th Cavalry that Lieutenant Colonel George Custer led to a terrible defeat against American Indian warriors 14 years earlier. at Little Bighorn, Montana. Maybe, these people said, justice was done. The 7th Cavalry got even for Little Bighorn at Wounded Knee. But that thinking changed as details about December 29, 1890 became known. How could a disaster where so many women and children died be called a victory? It didn't appear anyone was looking for a fight that morning, but there was little trust between Bigfoot's people and Forsyth's soldiers, and panic probably gripped both sides. In today's world, when things go terribly wrong, politicians and the media are often blamed, fairly or unfairly. The same was true in 1890. Senator Richard Pettigrew believed in Dakota for Dakotans, meaning he thought U.S. government jobs in the state should be filled by South Dakotans. After South Dakota became a state in 1889, Pettigrew worked to replace many government employees, including Indian agents on reservations. At Pine Ridge, Pettigrew got a political supporter, Daniel Royer, appointed agent. Royer had no experience in this line of work. The people of Pine Ridge didn't trust him. Royer couldn't talk effectively with tribal leaders when he heard rumors of trouble in late 1890. Instead, he called for Army troops. That's where the media jumped in. South Dakota newspaper writers and those from papers across the United States figured the Army's movement meant a likely Indian war. They traveled to the reservations, especially Pine Ridge, and promised their readers exciting coverage. Unfortunately, exciting writing about American Indians in books of the time called dime novels probably shaped the thinking of many young Army soldiers. In these books, Indians almost always were portrayed as cruel and fearsome. And in 1890, people who didn't understand the American Indian culture were witnessing something they found quite fearsome, a ceremony called the Ghost Dance. The Ghost Dance started here at Pyramid Lake in Nevada. A holy man named Wovoka said a reborn world would come with the new grass of 1891, a peaceful world with lots of bison to hunt. The new world became reality, Wovoka thought, if Indian people everywhere sang and danced the Ghost Dance.
The Ghost Dance, according to my great-grandfather, Dewey Beard or Iron Hell, and our family are ghost dancers. And he said that he had mentioned that it was going to bring everything back. The Washichu was going to disappear into the ground, and the buffalo was going to return. Our dead relatives were going to come back again, and we would see them. That means that there would be, that the onslaught or the coming of the whites would be stopped, that they would leave. The buffalo would come back, meaning that our culture, our way of life, our lands, and our freedom would come back. And our dead relatives would come back, meaning that our leaders would once more emerge. So in a way, it was a return to the old ways, and that was, to them, it was good. That's what they wanted.
On South Dakota reservations, men, women, and children danced with such intensity that they sometimes collapsed in exhaustion. That intensity scared the inexperienced Indian agents, and they tried to stop the ceremony. That didn't surprise ghost dancers in South Dakota. Believers most places spoke of the ceremony as peaceful, but in South Dakota, preparing for war was part of the dance. Some men wore ghost shirts, soft fabric with painted designs. Ghost dancers said these shirts would stop enemy bullets. It's likely some men at Wounded Knee wore ghost shirts and believed they couldn't be hurt. Why did Bigfoot's people leave the Cheyenne River Reservation? Bigfoot knew government officials tried to stop the ghost dance on the Standing Rock Reservation, just to the north. They tried to arrest Chief Sitting Bull there, and in the struggle, Sitting Bull was killed. If that could happen on the neighboring reservation, Bigfoot probably thought escaping the Cheyenne River Reservation was wise. His people could go into hiding, perhaps in the Badlands, where other ghost dancers were said to be gathering. Distrust, fear, bad political appointments, poor newspaper writing, scary dime novels, ghost shirts. Like chemicals that should never be mixed, these came together and exploded here. Wounded Knee marked the end of major violence between the United States Army and American Indians. It also opened eyes throughout the United States and around the world. In 1890, most thought the Indian Wars to be long over. Many believed American Indians were eager to drop their traditional way of life or were content living on remote reservations. Wounded Knee and the desperation behind the ghost dance revealed life was terribly hard for lots of American Indians. Wounded Knee opened eyes again 83 years later. It was no coincidence that American Indian movement leaders chose Wounded Knee in 1973 for an 11-week takeover. They told people worldwide that conditions still weren't good for many American Indians. Wounded Knee. Even the name sounds painful. Maybe that's as it should be, an aching reminder that fear and misunderstanding between people anywhere can lead to tragedy, and that we must learn from our dark days.
For additional information, a teacher's guide, games, quizzes, and more, log on to dakotapathways.org.